Yes, you can start.
So, good morning, everyone. So, today I'm going to talk about Pythagorean triples. So, before we start, let's just look at a bit of history. So, basically, in Egypt, they used to fish along the rivers. And what they used to do was they used to make these triangular fishing nets. And then they had rods of fixed length. So, what those Egyptians observed was when they formed a triangle of sides 3, 4, and 5, it turned out to be a right angle triangle. And the story goes like this. So when Pythagoras visited Egypt, he saw these kinds of fishing nets and he thought to himself that what could be the possible properties of this triangle that this becomes a right angle triangle. And after some trial and error, he came up with this equation. And then he proceeded to prove the famous Pythagoras theorem. So the next natural question that we can ask is, what are all the integers that can be represented as sides of a right angle triangle? And using the Pythagoras theorem, we get that such a triple must satisfy this equation. So finding such integers boils down to solving this Diophantine equation. So integer solutions of this equation are known as Pythagorean triples. So let's just observe first a few things first. So suppose that GCD of x, y, z is equal to d. So we can write x as some dx naught.
Amiya,
Yes, sir.
just wait for some time. So can you go little up? Yeah, so is it everyone clear till now? So what is a Pythagorean triple definition first? So somebody can tell us what is the definition of a Pythagorean triple?
So three integers x, y, and z are said to form Pythagorean triple if they satisfy x square plus y square is equal to x square.
Can you repeat one more time, please?
So three integers
Integers, okay.
are said to be Pythagorean triples if x square plus y square is x square plus y square equal to z square.
Yeah, the solution of this Diophantine equation is the Pythagorean triplet. Yeah, very good. And you observed that what is the first Diophantine equation we solved completely in this course? We solved completely. Again, the Diophantine equation, one Diophantine equation. What is that? We found all the solutions of that Diophantine equation.
Ax plus by is equal to GCD of
Ax plus by equal to c, solution set of that, right? When it has solutions, when it does not have solution, when it has a solution, what are all possible solutions? And interestingly, this is the second Diophantine equation completely solved. And overall, generally solving Diophantine equations are very, very tough. Okay, and there is a lot of research is going on. That's why this is a wonderful thing that 2500 years back, this particular thing is completely solved. That you need to realize first. And a complete solution means all Pythagorean triples can be found very systematically nice manner. Everything. Okay, so that he is going to tell today. Now he is starting something properties of this Pythagorean triples. Yeah, please go ahead.
So suppose we have a solution x square plus y square is equal to z square. So let's say that xyz is a solution of this equation and assume that GCD of xyz is d. So there exists integers x naught, y naught, z naught such that y is equal to dy naught and similarly z is equal to dz naught. Now from x square plus y square is equal to z square, we get that d x naught square, sorry, d square x naught square, d square y naught square is equal to d square z naught square. So
Yeah, so Amya, here, this is what I'm telling. So instead of you tell, we need to ask this as a sequence of questions.
okay.
We should not tell. For example, suppose XYZ is a solution, GCD is D. So can you create another triplet from this, Pythagorean triplet from this, right? Yeah, like that. Okay, so now let us see. Is somebody can tell me another Pythagorean triplet now?
Just remove the GCD, right? You have x naught, y naught, and z naught being the Pythagorean.
That is also a solution, right? Yeah, so can you tell me again what is a Pythagorean triplet now? Another Pythagorean triplet which we have,
X naught, y naught, and z naught.
X naught. So can you tell me some properties of that? Whatever. So think about. So all of you think, and so whatever comes to your mind, you let us know. Amya, don't worry. Either you telling or I telling, it's okay. You are
Yes.
telling only. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
In some sense, it's going to be the least Pythagorean triple, right? In the sense you cannot take anything out common in between x naught, y naught, and z naught.
Okay. So let us see like this. So you know that x comma y GCD equal to D. Okay. Then you know something. You are removing D here. So something. Can you somebody say some result related to that? Not going to triplet now. Just take ordered pair. Ordered means x comma y. Okay. So x comma y GCD equal to D. Something. Any one of you?
GCD of x by d and y by d will be equal to 1.
So can you guess now something similar to that now? So here XYZ is a Pythagorean triplet. Now if D is the GCD of XYZ, okay, that we can found. GCD of three numbers can be found two at a time, and then it is a binary operation. So associative property is there for the GCD also. So that's why we are doing that. That's fine. Okay. Now the question is that what we can say about X naught, Y naught, Z naught. You new triplet came. I can talk about the GCD of that also. What we can say about that?
Okay, it'll be 1. The GCD of x naught, y naught, z naught will be 1.
So is it easy to prove? Yeah, thanks, Akash. Your answer is correct. First of all, your answer is correct. Now, the GCD of x naught, y naught, z naught equal to 1, right? So the so you do you have any Pythagorean triplet like that till now?
Yeah, so you can take 12, 13, and 5.
12, 13, and 5. Okay. So 12, 13, and 5. Can you write, Amya, 12, 13, and 5?
Yes.
Means you write 5, 12, 13. 5, 12, 13. Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, so we have this. We do. Is it? He already mentioned. Amya is mentioned any Pythagorean triplet already in the this till now.
2, 3, 5.
3, 4, 5. Okay, 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So 3, 4, 5 can these two can get one from the other. Is it possible to get one from the other?
No.
No. Okay, fine. That's okay. So whether it is true or not, you made a statement, but it is true. I already mentioned the GCD of x naught, comma y naught, comma z naught is equal to 1. That we will prove in a while. But now, can you ask some other question now? Naturally coming. See, we took some Pythagorean triplet whose GCD is D. Then from that we created one Pythagorean triplet x naught, y naught, z naught whose GCD is 1. But can you think about and say something more general, some whatever the statement coming? So it is open.
So can we generate all Pythagorean triples using just triplets of co-prime numbers, in the sense the GCD of 3 numbers is 1?
Okay, so then
all-
Akash, then I'll very good. So I ask one question, Akash. So 3, 4, 5 is a Pythagorean triplet, right?
Yes.
Can you create one more from 3, 4, 5 itself?
Yeah, you just multiply 3, 4, and 5 with the same number.
Okay. So how many I can create now?
Infinitely many.
So now how many solutions are there for x square plus y square equal to z square?
Infinite solutions.
Infinite solutions are there. So infinite solutions are there whenever. What is the natural question comes? We need to try to look at some in the vector space also. We look for a basis, linear independent solutions like that, right? So same sort of thing we are looking. So what is that one can predict? Not Akash. Someone can predict now. What is it we are looking for? So Akash already told that from 3, 4, 5 I can create infinite by multiplying by any integer. Of course, we are looking for so without loss of generality, we'll always assume that the other positive, because negative also square will get so we are Pythagorean triple meaning is that we are looking natural numbers. Okay. So that things will be much clear now. Entire talk we are discussing natural numbers. Yeah. So somebody can tell us now, make some statement now. Akash told something. If I have a Pythagorean triple with GCD1, then I can create infinite. So to find all Pythagorean triples now, all the solutions, so they are infinite are there now, right? 3, 4, 5 you multiply, then we'll get infinite. And next one also you multiply any integer, again you will get infinite. So what is that we need to do? What is that we need to find? Something, yeah. Any comment from anyone? Yeah, Kanak, please go ahead.
Set up all XC. We just need
Sorry,
to
set.
set up all 8 such that all 3 of them are co-parent.
Okay. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, Amya, go ahead now. Is it okay, Amya? I'm just interfered. It is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
because
No, sir. It's fine.
why I am interfered. It is because we should not tell things. We should ask questions.
Yes, sir.
I not told things, right? They till now whatever they got, we got from them only. Yeah, good. Okay, please go ahead.
So, as sir said, the point to observe here is that GCD of x naught, y naught, z naught is equal to 1. So, now from any general solution x, y, z, we arrived at a solution where the GCD of the triples is numbers in the triple is 1. So, suppose we start in the opposite way, that assume that GCD of x naught, y naught, z naught is 1. Then we can simply create another solution as we have already seen. So yes, so the bottom line is that solving this Diophantine equation boils down to solving it for triples such that the GCD of x naught, y naught, z naught is 1, and such a triple is called primitive triple. So
Primitive Pythagorean triple, you say. So all of you are preparing PPTs. So that is that PPT now. Primitive Pythagorean triplet. So now onwards we'll simply say PPT. Yeah.
So so the bottom line of this discussion is that solving this equation is amounts to solving this for primitive triples, because any other triple can just be found like a scalar multiple of x naught, y naught, z naught. So henceforth, suppose I want to solve x square plus y square is equal to z square, I'm going to assume that GCD of x, y, and z is equal to 1. So another subtle point here is that in general, this may not imply that GCD of x and y is 1. For example, if we take 2, 4, 7, then their GCD is going to be 1. But GCD of 2 and 4 is not equal to 1. But in this case, we can observe that.
No. So wait. Yeah, Amya, you are telling actual thing. Okay. So can you write again 3, 4, 5? It is very nice topic. Okay, yeah. So another one triplet somebody told, right?
Yeah.
That is 5, 12, 13. Yeah, somebody can tell another triplet. Any other triplet? I will give one so that 21, 20, 29, right? 21, 20, 20, 21, 29. Right, Amya? You write. Hello, Amya?
Yes.
Yeah, you write 20, 21, and 29. Yeah, somebody else will give some other triplet. Pythagorean, primitive Pythagorean. 8,
15 and 17.
8, 15, and 17. Okay. Any other Pythagorean triplet? You know many. So try to give some primitive Pythagorean triplets. Wait, Amya. Okay.
Yes.
Few more.
7, 24 and 25.
Sorry, 7.
24 and 25.
Okay, 7, 24, 25. Can you write down? Is it true or not true? That also we need to check. Okay. So if needed, we'll take more in future. But from these observations, if you look at and say whatever you observe, can you tell us? These are all primitive is fine because their GCD is 1. Right? So also can you write this one triplet I will tell you, okay? 6, 10, 15. You already gave one, but I'll give one. Yeah, no, you should not write there. Please, can you erase there and write side and the side because it is not okay.
Yes.
So somebody can tell that is it a primitive it is is it primitive or not first? Means GCD 1 or not? GCD 1 or not? GCD of these three numbers.
No, no, sir, it's just 1.
What is the common divisor? You are telling not equal to 1. Do not write, Amya. So let us see whether really not 1 or not.
No, GCD is 1.
GCD is 1, right? Yeah, 3 numbers ka GCD is 1, right? Very
Yes,
good. But if you take any 2 of them,
that is not 1.
that is not 1. That's a beauty, right? If you take any 2 of them, GCD is not 1. But you take all the 3, then GCD is 1, right? Yeah. So similarly, 2, 4, 7, the some triplet he gave, that is also not Pythagorean triplet, but 2, 4 GCD is 2, right? So something can you say now? That is first question number 1. Any other observations also you can form it and tell us.
For PPT, the GCD of any 2 number is also 1.
Yeah, so that is what you are observing from these examples, right? Let us check 2021. Yeah, I think, yeah. Till now, all these examples are suggesting that, okay, that we check. So this is now conjecture. What is the conjecture? Conjecture 1 is that if I take ABC is a primitive Pythagorean triplet, then GCD of AB and GCD of BC and GCD of AC equal to 1. So that is one conjecture made by Kundu. Okay, Subumai. Okay, so any other conjecture you want to make, any one of you? Any other conjectures, any statements, anything you observed? Okay, so I'll give some hint. Okay, I'm not telling the thing, but I'll give some hint. So Rutuja can come up actually. So look at first 2 numbers only, 3, 4, 5, 12. Or you can look at the last numbers. Okay, first last number, hypotenuse, right? So can you say about that number? Whatever you guess. You need more Pythagorean triplets?
Sorry, sir, I didn't understand the question.
Question is that hypotenuse is the z value, right? X, Y, Z. Z is the hypotenuse, right? Generally, that is the largest, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you say something about that number? If you look at all these triplets, so can you comment on that? Yeah, Akash also. Any one of you. Achila, do you have any idea?
So I'm thinking.
Okay, if that is not coming, first two you can observe. Let us assume ABC, C is the largest value. You look at only AB, what we can observe there. So some pattern are you able to see? Or in the C itself, can you see some pattern? Anything?
A plus B is greater than C. Matlab, we
That is okay. So can you write one more 8, 15, 17 also you told. So I'll give few more so that it will be easy for people to comment. Okay, I'll give few more. So 55, 48, 73 means 48, 55, 73. So can you write Amya?
Yes, sir.
28, 45, 53. 28, 45, 53. Okay, so 39, 80, 89. Yeah, so maybe more examples you got now. I think you may tell now some properties. You need more, then we'll tell again. We'll give more. So are you able to see something now? Value of C.
They look like either they are prime or prime squares.
That is okay. Another one. Okay, good observation. Yeah, another one. Till now, they are prime or prime square till now. Yeah, so that is came, but which primes actually?
Odd primes.
Odd prime. So can you say something then? At least. So much more general statement than the prime or prime square. So I will try to give one example where it is not both prime and prime square, right? Let us see that example. So can you write one 33, 33, 56, 65? 33, 56, 65. Yeah. So till now, yeah. So this is that is not satisfying that property. Okay. Yeah. Anything? Can you comment now?
It will at least always be odd, the value of C.
Value of C is always odd. Correct. So that is one more conjecture. Till now, whatever we had, it is odd. Okay. Now that is odd. What we can say about first two now? That will help. Huh?
One of them
One is odd, other is even. Okay.
even.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so which one is sufficient to prove? In these two statements, if I prove one thing, then other automatically happens. What is that?
Just proving that C is odd is enough.
C is odd. How do you get? If C is odd, how can I get AB is also one of them? Even other is odd. How can I get?
Well, if both are even, their sum is going to be even. If both are odd, then if you square them, you're essentially multiplying two odd numbers, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that is also fine, but this is also fine, right? Sometimes, yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So, but both are not required. That you can see, Akash.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Nice. So these are the observations. So we'll try now. Okay. So Amya, is it clear that how to ask questions? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Actually, I observed one more thing here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can ask again. Further ask questions. Do not tell
Okay.
the reveal. Do
no,
not
no, no,
reveal.
like we already made an observation that the last number must be odd.
Ah.
So we can say something more about the hypotenuse, actually.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So, but to get that result, you can give you more inputs or you can give some hint actually without telling the actual answer.
okay,
Even
so
I also don't know. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
Akash's observation was that all of them are either prime or
no, prime
squares of
square.
primes.
Ah,
So we can say then like talk about the nature of the factorization of the numbers here, that about the
okay.
hypotenuse related to primes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, even for me, it is looking difficult. Mm, so
What
till
is
now we
prime
observed
and
that.
square of prime?
Sorry.
This comment, prime or square of a prime, this is related to which?
Yeah. So
Last one,
he was moving in the correct direction. Like this, his conjecture is clearly false because this 65 is a counter example. But he was moving in the right direction. He can sort of modify his statement and then comment something about factorization of the hypotenuse.
Okay.
So is it like that? Can I comment?
Yes, sir.
Is it it is a square free or square number?
No, it is related to factorization of primes. So
Ah.
nothing. Not
Yeah,
else.
I'm telling exponents. See, so I have product of two primes also. 65 is now 5 into 13,
Yes, sir.
right? And so we don't know in future, but what is that I want to say that exponents either one, all the exponents of primes are one or a two, like that I'm telling.
No, sir.
That is not okay. Okay, maybe something else. Okay. Okay, if anyone of you get, then you can go ahead. Otherwise, Amya will tell. Yeah, you can go ahead, Amya. Yeah, great.
So my conjecture is that if you factorize the hypotenuse like this, then all the primes must be of the form 4k plus 1.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So actually we can prove this.
We can. Yeah, we are anyhow prove that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So now.
No, we'll go one after the another. First, Submay Kundu told something, right? We'll go one after the another. So, who will try to prove Submay Kundu conjecture? So that if ABC, A comma B comma C is a PPT, okay, write down that theorem or like let ABC is a PPT. Then what is the conclusion? If ABC is a PPT implies, yeah, A comma B GCD is 1, A comma B GCD no need to write, yeah, AB equal to GCD of BC equal to, yeah. So who is ready to prove it? So ABC's PPT means it is given that two things to us. Can you somebody help us? What are the two things given to us? Mehak?
So GCD of ABC equals to 1.
And that is one thing. And next thing, already it is, first of all, it is Pythagorean. Okay. So A square plus B square equal to C square. So these two things are there with us, right? We need to use these two to prove that these are one. See, only with GCD of ABC 1 we cannot prove it because we have counter examples 6, 10 and 15 or something. So we need to use both A square plus B square equal to C square and also GCD of ABC 1. By using that we need to prove these things. Yeah. So who is ready to prove? Prove one of them. Okay, so before again proving this result, we need to prove. So is it sufficient to prove one of them? Like that you ask first. So for example, if I show that GCD of AB equal to 1, from that is it true that GCD of BC and AC is also 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is so. Can you prove that? Suppose, so let us go like this. Suppose GCD of AB without loss of generality. GCD of AB equal to 1, but GCD of BC is not 1. Then how do you contradict?
Okay. We can write B and C as DB1 and DC1.
Yes, yes.
So if you essentially it's an equality, right? Because it's a
Ah.
Pythagorean triple, right? So
Ah.
essentially what you will have is either A is divisible by the GCD of B and C, or it's divisible by B1 square minus C1 square.
Ah. Yeah, but better have some more picture. See, so always better. I am giving some hint to you for final exam also. So whenever you suppose that GCD of something is D and which is greater than 1, then immediately try to use that it has a prime factor P. Bring the P. Why P is essential? So now if P dividing D is the GCD of BC and D greater than 1, then D has a prime factor P. So now P divides B and P divides C. So now P divides A also. So because A square plus B square equal to C square, so A square is equal to C square minus B square. So P divides both of them, then P divides A square also. Then P divides A as well. So that is always an advantage. Is it okay, Akash?
So that's much better. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what I want to say. All of you remember that that is very powerful tool. Prime you are utilizing. Okay, great. So it is it everyone clear that if it is sufficient to show GCD of one of them is 1, right? Yeah, great. Now can you prove it now? GCD of AB equal to 1 will prove it. So can you prove that? How do you show that GCD of AB equal to 1? So Amya,
Okay,
can you write down
can
that
we-
also? A
Yes, sir.
square plus B square equal to C square
sir.
also. You write down.
We can do it in a similar way as we proved.
Yeah,
this,
okay.
right? So let's say that it's not 1. Let's say you have a common factor
Write down.
D.
Amya, write down fast. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So once you write down now fast. When somebody is telling GCD of AB equal to D. Okay.
D. So let's just take the D out. So you have D square A1 square plus D square B1 square is C square. Again, the same technique, what we can do is we can take the prime common, right? From
Yeah.
D. So essentially what we'll have is that the prime, if you have a prime factor,
Yes. Do
if
you
you have
want
a
me
prime, if you have a prime dividing D square A1 square plus D square B1 square, it should divide C square, right?
Yeah.
So that means there's a common factor P for all A, B, and C.
Yeah. Yeah. So you understand, but for a more clarity, I am just telling. So we are supposing that D greater than 1. So we are writing one after the other. Suppose D is greater than 1, right? So D is greater than 1, there exists a P such that P divides D. There exists a prime P such that P divides D. Yeah, so now P divides A, P divides B from this, right?
Yes.
So can you write that part also? Then P divides A and P divides B. Means so D is a common divisor for A and B. So you know all these things. So now P divides A square and P divides B square. And that you no need to write. You know in your mind.
Yes.
P divides A and plus P divides A square. P divides B plus P divides B square. So P divides C square. So P divides C. So now P is dividing A as well as B as well as C. What is the contradiction here? Someone? Not Akash. So now P is dividing A, B and C. What is the problem? So can I ask Mahima? Mahima, you are not responding. At least now, can you respond? Mahima Yadav?
Yes, sir.
What is the problem? Why it is a contradiction? So are you clear what is that I am asking actually, Mahima?
Yes, sir.
So we are proved that there is a prime which divides A, B, and C. Okay. There is a prime which divides P, A, and C, all the three. So why it is a problem? What is our assumption? Yes. Please go ahead, Mahima. Yes, Mahima, go
So
ahead.
we have assumed prime of AB is D.
Sorry, can you repeat?
So we had assumed the prime of AB is D.
No. Okay. See, what is that actually? What is that we are proving? Can you tell me that?
Sorry, GCD of AB is D.
No. What is the theorem we are proving? Okay, Mahima, please concentrate. Okay, it is not like that. You are all part and parcel. Everyone has to concentrate. Okay, Rutuja, can you tell us? Hello, Rutuja. Okay, Sonali. You see, Amya, I'm not. See, you think that I'm telling very trivial things, right?
No, sir, not like that.
No. Thing is that I also need response, right? We need response, right? Yeah. So Mehak, can you help us?
Yes, sir. So we are proving that GCD of A comma B is equals to 1.
Yeah, that is okay. That we need to prove. So in that process, we are proving by contradiction. Suppose A comma B GCD D and D greater than 1. If D greater than 1, there is a prime. So we prove finally that P divides A, P divides B, P divides C. So where we get the contradiction? That is a question. Proof by contradiction. We want to show GCD of AB 1, but we'll assume that GCD of AB is why if GCD of AB is not 1, why GCD of AB greater than 1? Can you tell that? GCD of AB not 1 implies GCD of AB greater than 1. Why? Yes, somebody want to. Yeah, Shubhamoy? Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, first of all, to answer your first question, you have to
Ah.
show that P divides A, P divides B, and P does not divide C.
No. See, we need to show that A comma B GCD 1.
Yes.
What is the hypothesis we have? That is important. What is the hypothesis given to us?
That the GCD of A, B, C is 1.
GCD of A comma B comma C is 1. As a 3 numbers, their GCD is 1. And also they satisfying A square plus B square equal to C square. These things are given to us and we need to show that GCD of AB 1. Yeah, so this is the hypothesis and this is the conclusion. Okay, so now we want to solve this. So we are assuming that GCD of AB is not 1. So it is greater than 1. So, sorry, by taking that way, finally we came to a place that P divides A, P divides B, P divides C. Then what is the problem? Where we get the contradiction? Yeah, tell me, Kundu.
Yes, sir. So last thing you said.
P divides A, P divides B, and as well as P divides C. We have that, right?
Yes.
Then what is the problem? If P divides A, comma B, comma C, all the three.
Yes. If P divide, then our GCD of ABC becomes P, which is not true.
Which is not, you cannot say P, but it is greater than or equal to P at least.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But it is not 1. So that is a contradiction. That's what I'm asking actually, nothing. Okay. Is it, at least it is clear to you, Shubhamoy? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So Amya, you just repeat once. Maybe if you repeat, they may realize. So I think many of them are not followed what I am saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just start with a primitive triple ABC. And our goal is to show that the GCD of AB is equal to GCD of BC, which is equal to AC is equal to 1. So now we prove this by contradiction. So suppose that GCD of AB is not equal to 1. And by definition, GCD is a positive integer. So it is equal to some D which is greater than 1. So now, because the GCD D is greater than 1, this implies that there exists a prime number P such that P divides D. Now, if we turn back to the equation we had was A square plus B square is equal to C square. Now, because P divides D and D is the GCD of AB, this implies that there exists some A naught and B naught such that
No need to write that much.
okay.
These are not required. So you
Okay.
simply say that P divides A, P divides B. That I think everyone is clear.
Yes. So basically P divides D. P divides A and P divides B. So we have seen that if a number divides two numbers, then it should divide their linear combination as well. So P divides A square plus B square, which is equal to C square. Now, because P is a prime, P divides C square implies that P divides C. Because by definition, primes are those numbers such that P either divides A or B. So here A and B are both C. So from this, we can conclude that P divides C. So at the end, what we have is P divides A, P divides B, and P divides C. So this means that P is a common divisor for A, B, and C. And so it must divide the greatest common divisor of A, B, and C, which is 1. Or if we don't want to say that, we can simply say that P has to be greater than 1. But we have assumed that GCD of ABC is 1, which is a contradiction.
Yes, done.
So
Yeah, done. You cannot repeat. We should not. We will go forward. Yes.
So, and moreover, this is, I think, a two-way implication. If these GCDs are 1, then we get a primitive triple. Because
No, that I will not agree. Agree in the sense that you will get maybe GCD of ABC is 1 is easy. But A square plus B square equal to C square is not correct, right?
just a second.
No. What is that I want to
Yeah,
say?
I mean, we can see that it's a Pythagorean triple, then it must be
Okay.
primitive.
Okay.
So maybe I'll write it in a.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, the part is clear. If the two number GCD is 1, automatically 3 numbers GCD also becomes 1.
Yeah,
that is okay. Yeah.
It is trivial, but it is needed because.
Right. Yes.
So the now the moral of the story is that solving for any general solution is just solving for a Pythagorean triple and solving for a primitive triple. And solving for a primitive triple is the same as assuming that GCD of just the first two numbers is 1. So henceforth, this is our setup.
So that's good. So whatever Shubhamay Kundu predicted, conjectured, that we done, right? All the GCDs are 1. That is a good question. So second question is that Akash predicted that X and Y are opposite parity, means one is even, other is odd. So how we can go about? Second, can you write that? If A comma B, in between you have something you can tell, otherwise we'll go to the next observation. If ABC is a PPT,
sir, I think you were correct about the conjecture before that it should be square free.
Okay.
So it should be product of distinct primes of the form 4k plus 1.
Okay. 4k plus 1 is also clear. That anyhow we'll do in a while. Yeah. So now can you go into that? Can you write statement as a conjecture 2? Conjecture 2. ABC is a PPT. if ABC is PPT, then okay, no, do not write. We'll ask them to tell.
Okay.
See, you told that A and B are of different parity. Okay, so how do you write that? I do not want to write A is odd, B is even, or A is even, B is odd. I want to write in a simple way. How can I write it? I also do not want to write A and B are of different parity. So, but I want to write in a single mathematical statement. How do I can write?
Sir, actually the proof that I have doesn't require all this.
No, that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So whatever they observed, that we'll do. Okay,
Yes,
first. Yeah. So somebody can come up. Implies A and B are of different parity. How do you tell in terms of mathematical equation? So I give.
There is one.
Oh, sorry, I want to tell that A and B, one of them is even, other is odd. So how do you tell that by using the some mathematic approach? One line.
A equals to 2k and B equals to 2k plus 1 for some k.
No, that is also again telling more. Okay, so I want just one line. You are telling two equations now, only with one condition.
So they are co-prime.
They need not. They are anyhow co-prime. Already we proved it.
Yes.
A comma B co-prime already done. That we already have. Co-prime does not imply that they are different parity, right? For example, 3 comma 5 GCD is also 1. Both are odd, but that is not happening. One is even, other is odd. Okay, so what we can say? Yeah, please.
Their sum must be odd.
Sum must be odd, or difference must be odd. So that can be tell as 2 does not divide. Can you write now, Amya? 2
Yes,
does
sir.
not divide. 2 does not divide A plus B or A minus B. Anything is okay. Yeah. Is it okay? That automatically takes care. 2 does not divide A plus B when 2 divides A plus B, right? Both are even or both are odd, right? You know that A is congruent to B modulo 2. A is congruent to B modulo 2 if both are even or both are odd. So these are looking trivial, but see, now I am getting an opportunity. You started now presenting. So, so revise things, everything again you can revise. That is the beauty of this book. So we do not need anything extra to done all these things, right? Whatever Amya doing, so earlier previous knowledge is sufficient. Okay, good, great. So this is what we want to prove. So now somebody can come up. We need to prove one of them is even, other is odd. Yeah, how do you prove it? Just tell me how do you proceed?
So you just assume that both x and y are even.
Very good connect. Thank you. So suppose all of you do not write. So we are not writing. So people can think of that both are even. What happens? Very easy. You easily tell now. If both A and B are even, what happens?
GCD fails to be 1.
So we already proved that if ABC is a PPT, then GCD of A comma B is 1. So both cannot be, both even cannot possible. That is ruled out. Very good. Now both odd also need to be ruled out. How do you rule out that? Yeah, so who will come up to that? Both are odd is not possible. How do you prove that? ABC is a PPT, then both A and B are odd is not possible. Achila, is it clear that both even is not possible is clear to you, Achila?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great.
Okay,
See,
so
my goal,
let both of them be odd.
okay, right. Okay.
But so Z is going to be even, right?
Okay, Z is even, right. That's okay. But what is the problem there? Okay.
If Z is even, Z square is divisible by 4.
Okay.
So what we can say is then x square plus y square is going to be divisible by 4.
Mhm.
But both x and y are odd. If it is of the form, so if they're odd, the square is of the form 4k plus 1, right?
Yeah, so yeah, you are good now. So okay, yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead. Let us see.
So if it is of the form
Do you
4k
want me to
plus
write down?
No, just let him complete so that we'll write in a compact way, whatever required.
so if it is of the form 4k plus 1,
Hmm.
the square root of the form 4k plus 1, their sum is going to be of the form 8k plus 2.
Ah,
Sorry, not 4k1 plus 4k 2 plus 2.
ah.
So it's not divisible by 4.
Okay. So can you, instead of that, now can you forget about all these things? Can you tell you already completed actually. You've done it very wonderfully, but can you make it more simpler now? So you, instead of that, make one statement. Next time onwards, I just remember that statement that gives the answer. Like both cannot be even because their GCD become 2. So in PPT, A comma B GCD 1. So that is ruled out, right? Both even is ruled out. So like that, without writing the proof, one line statement will help me. What is that?
Sum of two odd squares is not divisible by 4.
That is okay. That is good thing. So, but is there any other way also? Okay, you are maybe not predicting what is it I'm expecting, but so square of an integer is always something like
It's always of the form 4k or 4k plus 1.
so is it going to violate? Your argument is also wonderful. So what you are telling, and just repeat so that other people can understand. So you are telling that sum of two odd squares, sum of sum of squares of two odd numbers is not divisible by 4. So that is what you told, but that is demanding something. So for example, both x and y are odd, then their sum is even. So z square is even. So 2 divide z, 2 by prime again, 2 divide z square. So 2 divide z. So 4 divide z square. So now 4 divides x square plus y square. But 4 does not divide x square plus y square. Like that, all these things are coming. But okay, very good. Yeah, so but we already done something that can be utilized. We emphasized that more. Yeah, so anyhow, you are done actually. Somebody else can come up now, say something.
Sir, if
Hmm.
A and B are both odd, then
Hmm.
A square will be of the form 4k1 plus
Hmm.
1, and
Hmm.
B square will be of the form 4k2 plus 1.
Hmm.
Some of these will be of the form 4k dash plus 2.
Hmm.
But this is a PPT. This is a solution of that equation, Diophantine equation. So A square plus B square is equal to C square.
Hmm.
But so C square must be of the form 4k or 4k plus 1. But we are getting it as 4k plus 2.
2. Right, good. So that is done. Yeah, so we know that every square is of the form either 4k or 4k plus 1. That we proved earlier. No square is of the form 4k plus 2 or 4k plus 3. If both x and y are odd, then their square it and sum it. Okay, then we are getting 4k plus 2 form. So that is a contradiction. So is it okay, Mehak?
Yes, sir.
Kanak?
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. Yeah, so it is came from you people only, so it is done. Okay, so this part is done. So what is that now we conclude from this? What is that? So if ABC is a PPT, first thing we proved is that A comma B, B comma C, C comma A, GCD is 1. Second thing we proved is that A and B, first two numbers, one of them is even, other is odd. That automatically forces C is also odd. So these things we done till now. Okay. Yeah, Amya, go ahead.
Yes, so I'll just write down what we have discussed so far. So if x is some natural number, let's say, then x square is congruent to either 0 or 1 mod 4. So this implies that x square plus y square can only be of the form 0, 1, or sorry, it can Wait, yeah, so if x and y are odd, then x square plus y square becomes congruent to 1 mod 4. So this cannot happen because then we get z square is congruent to 1
2
mod
mod
4,
4.
which is a, sorry?
X
Sorry,
square plus
yeah,
y square is 2
it's
mod
2
4.
mod 4. So this implies that z square is congruent to 2 mod 4, which is a contradiction. So one of them must be even and the other must be odd. Right. So now actually, right. So we can write down the statement of the theorem. So the theorem is that so if x, y, z is a PPT, then there exist some integers m and n. So natural numbers or integers doesn't matter. Such that x is equal to m square minus n square, y is equal to 2mn, and z is equal to m square plus n square. So what this result says is it sort of tries to characterize primitive Pythagorean triples. So given any
Amiya, so is it the theorem statement is over?
just a second.
Is the theorem statement is completed or something you need to add?
I guess m comma n should be 1.
Right. Is that sufficient again?
Yes, sir.
No. See, be careful. If m and n GCD 1, okay. Look at your statement. If m comma n GCD 1, okay. So if I take any numbers of that form, then I can get it.
M
I
and
take
n
m
should be
com-
greater than 1.
Yeah. So is that sufficient again?
Yes, sir.
So can I take m equal to 3 and n equal to, yeah, okay. So both are, you are telling that
Yeah.
both are greater than 1, you are saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, so is it m greater than n automatically coming from here?
Yes, sir. Because
Yeah, because x, y, z we are thinking of all our natural numbers. So m is
actually,
greater
yeah,
than
we
n from
can
this.
take that. Because we have assumed that x, y, z are natural numbers,
So
then
that's why
m
they
becomes
don't need
greater
to
than
tell.
1.
Okay, that's fine.
But
So
anyway, because x square plus y square plus z is equal to z square, then even for minus x, this equation will be true. So we don't have to make that assumption.
okay. No. My question is that can I take 3 and 5 also?
Yes, sir.
So can you get me by PPT with that 3 and 5 say?
So x will be 25 minus 9, which is 16.
Yeah.
So y is okay. Y is 30, right?
Yeah, but whatever. So immediately you are realizing that no
Yeah.
need to compute. So, but they are even, both are even. So that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So what is that we need to add? So you told PPT, that's why we need to add something else. M and N are of different parity. 2 does not divide M plus N. That also we need to add. Yeah, okay then. Yeah, go ahead now.
So
But okay, before that, see, our objective is to classify all the Pythagorean triplets, right?
yes, sir.
So I tell you right now. So I know that you are very good in the number theory. You are interested and all, but this is the main theorem. So you did some small mistake here. You see that the statement? No. I want to say that I may You are giving scope to me to reduce 1 or 2 marks. Is it
But yeah,
okay?
we can write it as a double way implication.
That is okay. Not only that. So 2 does not divide m plus n and all theorem. It is the main theorem actually, right? Your topic
Yes, sir.
way. No. So I'm just telling you whether I decrease or not, it is a different matter. Yeah, I need to mention, okay, where we will see. Since yours is the first track today, I'm involving more and telling each and every point so that, so yeah, so you are actually, we all thankful to you. You first person came forward and all, okay, don't worry. Great. Okay, so now can you write that also here below? Such that you wrote, na? So below x equal to y equal to z equal to, and you can write 2 does not divide m plus n also.
Okay. I've written. So okay,
Here you wrote side by, yeah. So okay, so that is part of it. Okay, m comma n GCD 1 and 2 does not divide m plus n, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those are also part and parcel of the theorem. Okay. Now, what is the next question? So since we want to find all primitive Pythagorean triples, if xyz is a primitive Pythagorean triple, then you are telling there exist m and n all these conditions. What about the converse, right?
Yes.
So that you want to state in a different theorem?
We could add it here as well, but that we can do at the end because it's easy.
Okay, so that will help to classify all of them. So that is your goal actually, today's goal. Okay, great. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll just write if and only if then.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Now you can go ahead. First prove this. It's okay.
No, like the other part is easy, so there's nothing
right.
So actually, my idea was to prove it without number theory. So I was going to use some algebra. So we'll have to recall some concepts from ring theory. So the idea was to use the ring of Gaussian integers.
Okay.
So it consists of numbers of the form a plus ib, where a and b belong to z. So this is the ring of Gaussian integers. So we can easily verify that this indeed is a ring. And then this ring has certain properties. So the first property is that it is a Euclidean domain. So which means that there is a length function on the Gaussian integers and there is a concept of division. So we won't need this, the proof of this, but we need two facts that every Euclidean domain is a principal ideal domain. So from here we get that we have seen in our previous course that what a principal ideal domain is. So shorthand notation is PID. And we know that every PID is a UFD. So Zi is a UFD. So what this means is every element in the ring of Gaussian integers can be written as a product of distinct prime numbers. Sorry. Where P i's are primes in Zi. So what we are going to use is that this ring of Gaussian integers has a prime factorization just like the one that we use in integers, and moreover that this factorization is unique up to order and up to associates. So for example, if I write 1 plus I into 1 minus I, let's say, then this is the same as minus I minus 1 into I minus 1. So these two numbers are associates. So essentially they are the same factorization. So this is what we mean by unique up to associates. So we know that definition of associate is A and B are associates if there exists a unit element such that AU is equal to B. So yeah, so now the only difference between the factorization in integers and Gaussian integers is that we have two more units, I and minus I. So if I factorize some number as pi1, pi2, then I can also factorize that I pi1 and minus I pi2. So these are not considered to be distinct factorizations. So they are the same factorization. So that's the only difference. So
Okay.
this
So
is,
Amya, can I ask one question?
Yes,
Since
sir.
you are already given everything, okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask one question to them before continuing. Is it 1 plus I and 1 minus I are associates? Not you.
Yes.
Is the question clear? Is 1 plus I and 1 minus I, are they associates or not? Anyone of you? Akash, not you. Okay. 1 plus I and 1 minus I, are they associates or not? No one is coming up. Okay, I'll ask another question to all of you. Is 2 is a prime number in Z of I? That may helps actually. Is a 2 is a prime? So Kanak, what do you say? Is the question clear at least? Question is that is 2 a prime in Z of I? Is it clear, Kanak? Question. Mehak, is a 2 is a prime number? Achila?
So 1 second.
So I can write 2 as
No,
a
no,
square.
yeah, Kanak, please, yeah.
So I was saying I can write 2 as a square of some number in some element in the. So
Yeah, how do you write actually? 2 equal to square of some number. Okay, how it is?
I think I can take I plus 1 square.
Oh, okay. So can you write Amya? So he's telling that 2 is equal to 1 plus I whole square. Is it correct? How many of you agree with this? 1 plus I whole square equal to 2? 1 square plus I square plus 2I. Something need to be done. It is not equal actually. But so I got required thing, but Kanak told actually what is that I'm looking for. But of course, small modification we need to do, that we will do. So to answer that question, so can you somebody tell us that is 1 plus I and 1 minus are associates or not?
I think yeah, right. So I can write 2 as 1 plus I and 1 minus I. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, fine, that's fine. Yeah, so but this is also correct. What you told 1 plus I whole square is also correct, but do something now. Yeah, so you are correct that 1 plus I into 1 minus I, that's fine. So, but 1 plus I whole square, and so that's what I'm telling. Is it 1 plus I and 1 minus I, are the associates or not?
Yes, sir, they are. So 1 plus
How do
I is
you
equal to
show they are? Yeah,
1
please.
plus I is equal to I into 1 minus I. I is a unit in Zi.
1 I into 1 minus I. Okay, great. Correct. So can you tell us that 2 is equal to 1 plus I whole square into how much we need to write?
Sorry, sir. Could you repeat the question?
2 is equal to 1 plus I whole square into something we need to put, right? It is not equal, na? What is that I need to put there? 2 is equal to 1 plus I whole square into something. What is that something? 2 is equal to 1 plus I into 1 minus I, no problem with you. 1 plus I is equal to I times 1 minus I, no problem with you. So is it possible to write 1 minus I in terms of 1 plus I now? Look at that. These two are associates. So is it possible to write 1 minus I is equal to in terms of 1 plus I? Multiply both sides with I inverse, right? I inverse is how much?
Minus I.
Minus I. So 1 minus I is equal to how much?
Minus I into 1 plus I.
So 1 plus I into 1 minus I can write as 1 minus I can replace with minus I into 1 plus I. So 2 is equal to how much now? 1 plus I whole square into minus I, correct? That is easy also. See, 1 square plus I square, those gets cancelled. Then you'll get 2I into minus I, right? You'll get 2, right? Yeah, so done, right? So why I'm very particular about this particular example is that now 2 is no longer prime. Not only that, it is equal to prime square. And another interesting feature is that this is the only number which is a square of a prime number. Those primes are called ramified primes. All other primes are unramified. Something. So don't worry. So at least this example may help you to in future somebody want to work in algebraic number theory. So what are ramified primes and unramified primes? Okay, yeah. So this 2 is actually a ramified prime. This is the only prime which is ramified. It is a square of other prime up to associates, of course. We are multiplying by minus I. Yeah, Amya, go ahead.
Right. So now, so now what we have is that every element in the ring of Gaussian integers can be written uniquely as a product of primes.
But one more question, Amya, so that
Yes.
may help people.
Yes.
Is it 5 is a prime number? 5. In Z of I. Okay, so you can write actually, they are not coming. So I'll tell that 2 plus I into 2 minus I. Can you check it whether it is true or not? So like similar to 1 plus I, 1 minus I took 2 plus I, 2 minus I. Okay. So how can I get this one from actually, can somebody help me? 5 is of the form 4k plus 1. So what do you know about the primes of the form 4k plus 1? Are they can be written as sum of two squares? One of the quiz exam is that up to 100, right? What are all numbers which are sum of two squares? You done it and you proved that it is of the form, they are of the form 4k plus 1. So can somebody tell me how 5 can be written? 2 square plus 1 square, right? So how that 2 square plus 1 square I can convert it into a Gaussian integers?
So if I have some prime a square plus b square in Z, then
A square plus b square, very good. A square plus b square, how do you write? Actually, it is a product of two Gaussian integers. Very good. Can you tell us? Yeah, please. That is, you are telling actually, you are giving the how to catch fish. Yeah, please, can you tell a square plus b square equal to?
plus dr.
No, can you repeat? A square plus b square equal to product of Gaussian integers. Yeah, can you tell us? Yeah, Akash, you can also tell now.
Sir, a square plus b square is equal to a plus bi into a minus bi.
Can you write, Amya? A square plus b square equal to a plus ib into a minus ib. Okay. So you understand the beauty of that one? Why he went to the Gaussian integers, right? So this a square plus b square split like this. Okay, that is the crux of entire algebraic number theory. Gauss actually introduced these numbers. That's why they are called Gaussian integers. He not stopped there. So he want to find all the other adjoining I. I think Amya, you may know, right?
Yes, sir.
Later, Fermat's last theorem, somebody is giving the talk. Okay, so for example, Pratik is giving a talk. So many scientists thought that Z of any others also they are UFD. That gives very many wrong proofs for the Fermat's last theorem. But Z of I, there is no problem. Actually, it is a ED, so it is a PID, so it is a UFD. But others it is not true. So there Kummer actually find out the counter example. There is a great mathematician called Kummer. He found later. But is it possible to write? Is it possible to write 3 as product of 2 primes in Gaussian integers? Number 3.
There's a proof of Fermat's theorem using Gaussian integers as well.
Fermat's proof for which one?
The
Can you repeat?
Fermat's theorem is that every prime of the form 4k plus 1 can be written as sum of squares.
Okay, yeah,
And
exactly.
it can also prove that for numbers of the form 4k plus 3, it cannot be written.
Right. See, 4k plus 3 cannot be written. So what happening is that, so can you write here, this side there is a gap, okay?
Yes, sir.
Can you write Z below? Z, first write Z integers. Not Z below.
Sorry.
Okay, you can keep there. You can keep there. Z of I, right? Convert it to Z of I.
Okay.
Now below, somewhere below, put a line. Not that line, vertical line. Sorry, I not told properly. Yeah, vertical line. Not below, exactly below Z of I. Take right Z below, exactly. At the end of the line.
Where?
No, at the end. Like Z of I is in above, Z is below.
Okay.
Okay, now, so Z of I contains Z. Z of I contains Z, right? Now, how the primes, so now you have more numbers. We have more numbers in Z of I. So there is a possibility that the numbers which I take here may split further there. When you have more number, they may split. Like you see that 2 is now, 2 will not split in Z. 2 is a prime here. But whereas if I go, because I is coming, 1 plus I, 1 minus I came. So now 2 is equal to 1 plus I into 1 minus I. It is no longer prime there. Okay. So it is sufficient to look at that how prime splits in above ring. Okay. So that is exactly that all the primes of the form 4k plus 1 will split there. All the primes of the form 4k plus 1 will split. Okay. Exactly product 2 distinct, but these two are, you see that 2 plus a and 2 minus a are not associates. They are 2 distinct primes. Only for 2 it happens. So it is the same prime. That's why 2 is the only prime which ramifies. Here also 2 behave completely differently, and all primes of the form 4k plus 1 will split. It is a product of 2 primes. Whereas all primes of the form 4k plus 3 will not split. They will again go as it is. They are called inert. In the chemistry, you know, inert gases. Like that, these will go as inert. Primes of the form 4k plus 3 are inert, whereas others 4k plus 1 will split. Okay. So that is the beauty of this. So you want to work in Z, but Z is not allowing us to split further. So we'll go to the bigger ring. Okay. If you go to field, you know what happens, right? Field may everything is possible, right? But so to work more, then Gauss thought that it is better to go to bigger ring. Yeah, to know more about those numbers. Yeah. So he now he distinguished, right? He distinguished these primes behaves, how they behave there. So he able to tell that he separated primes into 3 parts now. 2 ramified, these are unramified. Okay, but they are called completely split. So split, otherwise you can say split. Primes of the form 4k plus 1 split. Primes of the form 4k plus 3 not split. They are inert. Okay. The same thing can be worked for z root 2, z root 3, z of root minus 5, z of root 5, many things. That is the area of the algebraic number theory. Yeah. So I hope you appreciate it. You need to know why we are studying these things. Okay. That's why my goal to tell. Okay. Yeah.
So just a small point that I would like to make here, that if I write 2 as 1 plus I into 1 minus I, now suppose I don't know that Zi is a UFD, this does not prove that 2 is a prime. It shows that 2 is reducible. So in a general ring, reducible and prime need not be the same thing.
Right,
So
right.
for a UFD, these two are the same thing. So I'll write down. So irreducible and prime. So in a general ring R, irreducible is that if you write it as A equal to BC, so A is said to be irreducible if for every factorization like A equal to BC, either B or C must be a unit. So this is what we mean by irreducible, and P is a prime if P divides AB implies either P divides A or P divides B. So a priori we don't know that the ring of Gaussian integers is a UFD, suppose. Then if I write 2 is equal to 1 plus I into 1 minus I, it shows that 2 is reducible. It does not mean that 2 is not prime. But for a UFD, if R is a UFD, then we have the result that some element R is irreducible if and only if R is prime. So because ring of integers is a UFD, we can say that it is irreducible or prime. Both of them mean the same thing. But in a general ring, these two are different things.
Yeah.
So now we are in a UFD and we found a splitting for 2 as 1 plus I into 1 minus I. And so it is reducible. And reducible is the same as not being prime. So 2 is not a prime. Now, yeah. So, okay. So now let us go back to our equation. So we had this where GCD of x comma y is equal to 1. Now you all can guess what I'm going to do with this. So any idea? How can I rewrite x square plus y square in the ring of Gaussian integers?
Write it as x plus I into x minus iy, sorry.
Yes.
Y.
So now we have x square plus y square is equal to x plus iy into x minus iy. Now we are going to use an idea which is similar in that of integers. So in integers, we say that if AB is equal to C square, where GCD of AB is 1, then A and B both must be squares. So that is the idea that we are going to use here.
Actually, this is the guy. Actually, you may not look simple. It looks simple.
Yes, sir.
AB equal to, but this is the guy made many people culprits. Because of this result, many people gave the wrong proofs for Fermat's last theorem. So they thought this AB equal to C square implies both A and B are squares. They assumed that it is true for any extension over Z. Okay. Yes. So that created a problem. So actually this is not true in general.
Yes.
So but I want to tell you that this, so I want to tell you that this is a problem is very simple, but this is one of the most powerful thing in proving this result. And in future for many cases. One can easily observe here A comma B GCD equal to C square. So how can we prove that both A and B are squares? Somebody can help us. if a comma b, a into b equal to c square and a comma b GCD1, why a and b are squares? You don't need to tell exact proof. It's intuitive idea. Whatever idea which you are getting, why it is happening. You tell us. So you know that C is a natural number. C has some prime factorization. So you know what, so C equal to some P1 into P2 into Pk, maybe repetitions. Then you know what about C square, right? So think about that. Like that, you tell us that why A and B both are square numbers. So in particular, you take my C is equal to say 6. C is equal to 6. Okay. C is equal to 6. You know 6 square. Can you tell me AB now? A comma B GCD1. I'm telling C equal to 6.
A is 9 and B is 4.
That is one combination. Otherwise, A equal to 1 and B equal to 36. Another combination, right? Yeah, great. So, but you told exactly what I'm expecting. A is 4 and B is 9. So what is happening in 3 square, the 6 square, that is 2 square into 4, 3 square, that they are splitted, right? They have to split because GCD of A comma B1. Okay, thanks for your answer. So I hope it is this question easy to show it. Yeah, you can proceed, Amaya.
So now we have x plus iy into x minus iy is equal to z square. Now suppose that there is some, okay, so now a primes in this ring are called Gaussian primes. So now there's a confusion here because when I say prime, I don't know if I'm talking about primes in integers or in the ring of Gaussian integers. So if something is prime in Zi, I'll call it as a Gaussian prime. So now let pi be a Gaussian prime, or Gauss prime, let's say, such that pi divides x plus iy and pi divides x minus iy. Then my goal is to show that there is some contradiction here. So, right. So now, because, okay, so maybe I should introduce some notation. I'll call this as x plus iy and I'll call alpha bar as x minus iy. So this is the complex conjugate and you can see that it is in fact x minus iy. So now I'm assuming that pi divides alpha and pi divides alpha bar. So now because pi divides alpha bar, I can write alpha bar as some pi times some d, right? Where d is a Gaussian integer. Now if I take conjugates on both sides, I'll get alpha is equal to pi bar into d bar. And from here we get that pi bar divides alpha, right? So now we have pi divides alpha and pi bar divides alpha. So actually when I proved this result, I directly assumed that pi into pi bar must divide alpha, but now I see that this may not always be correct. So my idea was that suppose, so pi d is alpha bar and pi into s is equal to alpha. Just a second. Right, so I'll write it as pi bar d bar is equal to alpha and pi s is equal to alpha. So from here we get that pi s is equal to pi d bar.
So you already took actually alpha bar equal to pi d, you already took earlier.
Yes, yeah. So I took the same notation.
Okay, but now, okay, fine. Yeah, correct. Okay. Now alpha, yes, you are telling. Pi s, so since pi divides alpha, so pi s also there is it as such that pi s equal to alpha. That is also fine. Yeah, pi s equal to pi bar d bar.
So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Next.
So now here I concluded that because pi and pi bar are primes, then we should have pi divides d bar. So that was a mistake. There's only one exception here, that pi can be 1 plus I. So other than that, there is no mistake here. So we'll discuss that case later. But for now, let's say that pi and pi bar are not associates. So now, because pi divides d bar, this implies that d bar is actually equal to some pi bar into, pi into some c. So now finally we can write pi bar d bar as, for d bar I am substituting pi into c.
Right.
So into pi into c. But this, if you remember, was alpha. So here we get pi bar into pi into c. Now I'm writing this as p into c. So now observe that pi bar into pi is an integer because it's a product of conjugates. So if you take something like a plus ib into a minus ib, then you know that this is going to be a square plus b square, which is an integer, right? So this is going to be an integer. So now what we are left with is that this p times c is equal to x plus iy, right? Because that is what we started with. We said that alpha is equal to x plus iy. And now suppose c is some, again, like d1 plus I d2.
1 minute. I think they may have some doubts. They are not asking,
sure.
but yeah. So do you have any doubts actually here? See, now it finally suddenly it become artificial. Okay, what is that I want to say? Can you go a little up?
Yes.
So you wrote x square plus y square is equal to z square as x plus iy into x minus iy, and you took x plus iy as alpha into alpha bar equal to z square. That much is okay. So why pi you took? So that is not articulated. Can you go a little up again further? Yeah. So till now
I
it's
should
fine.
say,
Yeah.
suppose.
Alpha alpha into alpha bar equal to z square. That is fine. Suppose. So pi is a Gaussian prime and pi divides both of them. That's what you are telling.
Yes, sir.
You took something, some reason. We do not know why you took.
Yes.
You took some prime which dividing both alpha and alpha bar. Then, so what happens you want to see. That's the goal here, right?
Yes.
Suppose there is a Gaussian prime which divides both and alpha bar. Then what happens? That you want to see. So while going like that, finally you came up with some place that but they need to know that why pi into pi bar is actually a prime number.
It need not be a prime number.
Okay. Why it is not a prime number?
I mean, it need not be. It could be, but something like.
No. So that's what. See, how do you check given number is prime or not? In Gaussian integers.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, that we need to. I thought that result you are telling, so you are using it. So just state
No,
it.
it actually.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You state that result. A number is prime if and only if norm of that.
No. We don't need that actually.
Okay. But why? So you are telling pi into pi bar is p. What is p now?
P is an integer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay then.
Right. So here we know that c is some Gaussian integer because by definition of divisibility there exists some integer, Gaussian integer c, such that pi into c is d bar.
Okay.
So now I'm writing c as d1 plus I d2.
Okay.
Now this is x plus iy. So now if we compare the real and imaginary part, we get that x is equal to p times d1 and y is equal to p times d2. So now because your p is actually pi into pi bar, This is of the form some a square plus b square. And this cannot be equal to 1 because, well, if this is equal to 1, then b has to be 0. And if this is 1, then pi is either 1 or -1 or I or -I. But that cannot happen because by definition, pi is a prime number and it cannot be a unit. So the bottom line is that p is some prime integer. It may not be an integer, prime. P is an integer greater than 1 such that p divides x and p divides y. So here we observe this fact because of just comparing real and imaginary parts. So if I expand C as d1 plus I d2 and compare the real and imaginary parts, what I get is p divides x and p divides y. So this is a contradiction because we have assumed that GCD of x and y is 1.
Right.
So this division, now we should be careful. This division I'm talking about as division in integers, and this one is in Gaussian integers.
That is okay. See, finally we conclude that if pi is a Gaussian prime which divides both alpha and alpha bar, then you got a contradiction.
Yes, sir. So we have this contradiction. So that means that this alpha and alpha bar cannot have common prime factors.
That means alpha comma alpha bar GCD is 1.
Yes.
Okay.
So now this was the hard part. So now we just have to make a simple observation that now alpha into alpha bar is z square. So there are multiple ways of proceeding. So this is one of them. Now let's say that P1, so now let's say that because z is an integer, we know, but we can also treat it as an element of zi, right? So now because z is also a Gaussian integer, we can write down the prime factorization of z in Gaussian integers. Okay, so these are not integer primes, these are Gaussian primes. Now z square will be of the form p1 to the power 2 alpha 1, p2 to the power 2 alpha 2, and pk to the power 2 alpha k. And now because alpha and alpha, so let's say that alpha 1 is pi 1 to the power alpha 1. Oh, sorry, I cannot take alpha 1 again. So I'll take some beta 1, let's say. Then pi 2 into to the power beta 2 into pi, let's say r to the power beta r. And alpha bar is, actually it turns out to be pi 1 bar, pi 2 bar, but we don't need that. So we'll just assume it to be some other prime, let's say q1 raised to, let's say, gamma 1 raised to gamma 2. So qs raised to gamma s. So this may seem complicated, but the reason we are doing this is because the factorization in Gaussian integers is going to be unique. So when I multiply these two numbers, the resulting factorization should be the same as the factorization for z square.
Yeah.
So ultimately what we have is that because alpha into alpha bar is z square, I can multiply alpha bar here to get pi 1 to the power beta 1, pi 2 to the power beta 2, to pi r to the power beta r, into q1 to the power gamma 1, q2 to the power gamma 2, so on up to qs to the power gamma s is equal to what we had originally, p1 to the power 2 alpha 1 into p2 to the power 2 alpha 2, and so on. So now,
yeah, it is UFC, so they will coincide. These primes.
So just excuse me for a moment.
Yeah. So do you have any questions till now before Ramya come? Any one of you?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay.
So now,
Any questions I am asking them? Any questions or something? Okay, yeah, proceed.
right? So now we use the fact that this is a unique factorization domain, and we have produced two different factorizations for the same number. So, so they actually they're not too different; they're the same thing. So the final point is that these primes pi1, pi2, pi_r, and q1, q2, qs must be p1, p2, and so on in some order.
Yes.
And another point is that pi1s, pi_i's, and qi's are all distinct because we have proved that alpha and alpha bar are co-prime.
Right.
They cannot have any common prime factor.
Right.
So these pi_i's and qj's are distinct. So what follows is that pi_i to the power beta I is equal to some pj to the power 2 alpha j.
Right.
So this means, and same goes for qi as well. Qi power gamma I is equal to some pj power 2 alpha j. So now if we go back to alpha, we see that
you write pk so that later confusion.
Okay. Right. So now if we go back to the factorization of alpha, it was pi1 to the power beta 1 and so on up to pi r to the power beta r. Now this can be written as some number to some even power. I'm not writing all that. So all that matters is that this power is even. So now because the powers of all the primes in this factorization are even, this number can be written as a perfect square. So I'm calling this number, let's say, I don't know, theta, let's say. So this alpha turns out to be theta square. So now, because theta is in the ring of Gaussian integers, by definition, we have there exists m and n belonging to z such that theta is equal to m plus in. And now the magical step is that this, actually I'll begin with x plus I, right? So x plus iy was our alpha, which was theta square, which is m plus in whole square, which is m square minus n square plus 2mn times I. So now if we compare the real and imaginary parts again, we get that x is m square minus n square, y is equal to 2mn, right? Now, if I want to calculate z square, then we know that z square is x square plus y square, which is going to be m plus in whole square. Sorry, maybe I'll write alpha bar first. Alpha into alpha bar.
You have m square plus m and n are x and y values are already. You can use them.
Yes, sir. So this, now I can write this as m plus in into m minus in, the whole square. So this is m square plus n square, the whole square. And now because we have assumed that z is a positive integer, we can directly take the square root, and z turns out to be m square plus n square. So now we started off with a primitive triple, and okay, I don't have to write x y equal to 1 if it is primitive. So this implies that there exists integers m and n such that x is equal to m square minus n square, y is equal to 2mn, and z is equal to m square plus n square. So now, if you observe this equation, then we didn't have to worry about even and odd, because when I expand m plus I whole square, one of the terms automatically turns out to be 2mn. So just looking at x and y, we see that one of them have to be even. So another point is that here we have assumed this without loss of generality, because I could have written x square plus y square as y plus ix into y minus ix. And in this case, we get x is 2mn, y is equal to m square minus n square, and z is equal to m square plus n square. Now, this really shouldn't be a surprise because this is a very trivial thing that if this is equal to z square, then it automatically follows that y square plus x square is also equal to z square. So it's just switching the roles of x and y. So yeah, so this completes the proof of one part, that if x and y, x, y, z is a primitive triple, then we can find integers m and n such that x is equal to m square minus n square, y is equal to 2mn, and z is equal to m square plus n square. Now, if we want to prove the other way, that every if x and y, if x, y, z are of this form, then they indeed form a Pythagorean triple. Now that is very easy to verify because if you just do m square minus n square whole square plus 2mn whole square. So I'll just write a question mark here. So this is an algebraic identity which can be verified. This is true for any mn. So if x, y, z are of this form, then obviously x square plus y square is equal to z square. So here we prove the converse part as well, that if we start off with integers x, y, and z, which are of the form m square minus n square, 2mn and m square plus n square, then they form the solution of the Pythagoras equation. So we have proved both ways, and so the theorem is essentially complete, that x, y, z are primitive Pythagorean triple if and only if
you
there
can
exists-
remove, actually, if you want, you can remove PPTP just to remove Pythagorean triple only you can use.
Okay, that's fine.
Then it is no need to tell about further conditions and m and n.
Okay. So now we showed here that there exists m and n such that x is equal to m square minus n square, y is equal to 2mn, and z is equal to m square plus n square. So now remember that our original problem was to find solutions, all solutions of the form x, y, z, where we didn't have any condition on GCD of x, y, z, right? So, but now we argued that it is enough to find solutions for triples where they are primitive, meaning the GCD is 1. So if the GCD is not 1, we argued that it is some scalar multiple of a primitive triple. So if I give you any triple x, y, z, it may not be primitive. Then this solution will be given by a primitive solution times some scalar, right? So I'll call that scalar as s, let's say. So that solution will be given by s times m square minus n square, s times 2mn, and s times m square plus n square. So this is our general solution for a Pythagorean triple, where of course we have s is a positive integer. I'll just say s belongs to natural number, and m comma n GCD is 1, and so on.
Yeah, great. Okay, so time is up actually, yeah, and you completed. That's good. So I think you solved some problems also, right?
Sorry, sir.
You have some problems also you solved, right, on these Pythagorean triplets?
No, sir.
No, okay. You can solve it actually. There is an exercise.
Yes, sir.
That also try to submit. Then yeah. So presentation is good. You completed fully, but
just
I'll ask
a few remarks that I want to make at the end.
Right. Okay.
So now one point that we noted was that we can use this ring to prove the theorem of two squares, that every prime of the form can be written as sum of two squares. And another thing is that in this proof, we haven't used any number theory at all. So we have only used a ring theory. So that is why this proof is abstract. And then we can generalize to this ring z omega, where omega is the root of this equation. Now, if I work in this ring, I can show that this equation has no solution. So using this ring, I can use similar arguments of factorization to prove that there is no solution for xyz where x cube plus y cube plus z cube, x cube plus y cube is equal to z cube. So we can prove the Fermat's last theorem for n equal to 3 using this ring.
That is what actually people thought. Luckily, this is also UFD.
Yes. So
That's
these
why
two,
Euler proved this, right? So Euler becomes again famous because that he proved for n equal to 3. It is not, solution is not there. But later 5 Dirichlet proved. Afterwards, it became very difficult and many wrong proofs came because they're all imitating the same thing, z of I, z of omega. See, the method you told today is giving an approach to Fermat's last theorem, and in general, how do you proceed? How do you utilize algebraic number theory in solving the Diophantine equations, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I want to add one more point that see, why we are going to bigger rings and bigger places. So the only with integers, so we may not solve certain things. So complex numbers, so they are much better. So any problems which cannot be solved in real, we go to complex. See, even to get all the solutions of x square plus 1 equal to 0, real numbers is not sufficient, right? So that's why we'll go up bigger rings. So similarly here also. Yeah. You want to add more? Done.
That's
okay. Good. But
yes. One more thing. I just remembered.
Yeah.
So if we look at it geometrically, then we saw that this is a right angle triangle, right? So now we can ask another question. Like, what if we have a triangle where there is a 60-degree instead of a 90-degree?
Okay.
Right. So now if we apply cosine rule here, we get that z square is actually x square plus y square minus xy. So this again can be worked in this ring z omega, and then you can find primitive solutions for this equation again using the same argument that we use, and then we find primitive triples for a triangle with 60-degree instead of 90-degree.
Very good. This is a very nice point. Otherwise, we will miss it. Okay. So can you recall few more things?
No, this was the last thing. Yes, these are the 3 things I want to say. That for my last theorem, and then
last one is fantastic. Yeah, good, very good. So actually, it is better. They will understand that if you found norm function here, it is little different. It is not x square plus y square.
Yes, sir.
It will come like this. That also it will be helpful to understand. Yes. Okay, very good. So if you do not have any, then I will tell one more simple point here.
Yes, sir.
So if you divided by m square minus n square by m square plus n square to mn by m square plus n square, is it somebody got these in earlier somewhere? I'm saying m square plus n square by.
Do you want me to write down, sir? Do you want me to write it down?
You can write down. So m square plus n square by m square minus n square. M square plus n square by, I'm telling z by x and y by x.
Okay.
So m square plus n square by m square plus n square. You can write that.
M square plus n square divided by m square minus n square, right?
So plus you write m square plus n square plus m square plus n square.
In the denominator as well?
No. You wrote only m square minus n square right now, right?
No, sir. Is my screen visible? I've written a fraction.
Oh, okay. No, you have to write in the okay. Now it is clear. Okay. Now fine. So this is now comma. You write ordered pair, okay. Not ordered triad. So x comma y like comma m 2mn by m square minus n square again. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So somebody can see this pair and you can say something you do come across in your life. Somewhere.
Sir, I think it should be plus in the denominator and minus in the numerator.
Okay. Okay. Can you write like that then? Okay. Yeah. Please change that. I may be confused. Yeah. Right. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So is it somebody got this one somewhere? Any one of you? Okay. So I'll give some more hints so that time is up, right? So you know that x square plus y square equal to z square. If I divide it by z square, what happens? Throughout equation. X by z whole square plus y by z whole square is equal to, you see that it is x by z and y by z, right? So what is that point now? X by z whole square plus y by z whole square equal to 1. Now these are rational points. X and y are integers. Now x by z and y by z are rationals. Where they lie? No one is coming up. Okay then.
On the circle. Unit circle.
On the unit circle. See, you are just finding the points on the unit circle only, but rational points. So there is a one-to-one correspondence. That again later in future we will study that there is a projective geometry. So you will understand that. See, if you what is the problem here is that there you multiply by d, dx square, dy square. But if you multiply d here, it will not come. You see, that means entire line becomes one point here. That's why projective geometry comes. Lines become points. So see, problem looks very simple, but so much is there in this Pythagorean triplets. You not, so these are points on the unit circle, and you know cos theta sin theta values are like this, right? M square minus n square by m square plus n square. So cos theta sin theta points on the unit circle look like cos theta sin theta, right? So they are related to that. One proof can be done by that approach also. There are various proofs. Today AMI are done by using Gaussian integers, but the time is up. You have to go to attend other classes. I should not culprit for that. We'll stop here. Please go to other class. Thank you.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, you stop sharing, but it is really one done very well. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Shivani. Yeah, so we need to clap actually, but time is missed. Time is not there. Yeah. Okay then. Yeah, you can leave. Yes.